Willie Loman never made a lot of money. His name was never in the paper. He's not the finest character that ever lived, but he's a human being and a terrible thing is happening to him. So attention must be paid. He's not allowed to fall into his grave like an old dog. Attention must finally be paid to such a person. This is a line delivered by the Linda character in a play written or published in 1949 by Arthur Miller called Death of a Salesman. And it is the reason that I took the nickname of Willie Loman, and it is the reason that I have been called American Everyman all these years. Willie Loman is the classic American everyman. Just a nobody, a worker, trying to struggle through a transition that was taking place post-World War II, 1949, trying to find his footing in what they considered then to be a new normal. Won a Pulitzer. It was a classic fucking story. Classic play. And it really was a defining part of my post-college adulthood, especially, certainly once I started getting into the kind of work that I do now. So it is not without a great deal of respect that I bring this up when I'm talking about Debbie Lusignan, the Sane Progressive. Debbie passed away this past Friday. A long history, according to her family members, of serious mental illness, mainly depression, bipolar disorder, things of that nature. She wasn't wacky, but she was troubled. And of course, once she got into doing this kind of work and she began to realize things that she didn't see before, she started seeing things that she hadn't seen before. The kinds of things that you don't unsee when you wake up. Not when you become woke, but when you wake up. These things didn't help contribute to her stability. For the work that she did and for the passion that she had, she couldn't be allowed to pass into her grave like an old dog. Attention must be paid. This is the second time I made this video. The first time I was about halfway through it, a little more than halfway through it, and Microsoft One decided to lock up my computer, trying to just take all of my fucking images and upload them without my consent to their glorious cloud. That's what they do now, I guess. So, in typical Scott fashion, I decided to beat on my computer, which was tame compared to... you saw how upset I got with Microsoft the other day. This was worse. I think the cats are still hiding. This was nothing. One time Mom was coming by the house to see me, and I was working on a video or something, and the computer was fucking up. I've always had inexpensive computers. And she walks in the door. She had keys. This is the other place I lived at before here. And she opens the door and walks in. And all of a sudden, this fucking CPU comes flying down the hallway and smashes onto the linoleum floor, the cheap linoleum floor, and slides across it. And she told me, I didn't even know she was there. She told me she just turned and opened the door, walked out, closed it, and left. I've had my own issues with, of course, I don't know Debbie. I never knew Debbie. I knew her from her work, and I took some exception at times to angles she took on things. This wouldn't be completely honest. It would be disingenuous of me to address this, her passing, without bringing this up briefly. I believe she delved into something. She loved Bernie Sanders. Did I bring that up? Did I? Those are pics. She had a big thing for Bernie Sanders. She was very progressive in her beliefs. And let me bring this up real quick. She was very progressive in her beliefs. And has my computer locked up again. And it's about to. No, it's just my fucking archive, which is not responding, which I can't fucking close. This computer is literally about to go flying down the fucking hallway in about 2 seconds, and that is gonna be it, huh? It's not even showing up. So I was hoping to show you. Okay. Bernie Sanders. Let's try this way. This time. This computer is just on its fucking last leg. This was from 2016. This is Feel the Burn. This is from October of 2015. The election from 2000, and it just didn't open. Start recovery. Okay, next. This thing is just fucking dying. I don't know what the fuck is going on with this computer. I'd like to. There we go. Okay. So this was from October of 2015. The primary started in February of 2016. I was telling people long before even this was written that Bernie Sanders was nothing more than a sheepdog. He was trying to lead people back into the real left, back into the fold to vote for Hillary Clinton. At this point in time, in 2015, Debbie was all on board and was trying her best to campaign for Bernie Sanders, thinking that Bernie Sanders was going to be that glorious leader that actually did what Barack Obama promised to do in 2008, but of course never did. I wrote, Bernie Sanders is nothing more than a sheepdog. His purpose is to bring the stragglers of the left back into the warm embrace of the centrist corporate Democratic Party. The self-proclaimed socialist has never offered one single real alternative to our beloved capitalist system, offering only mild restraints to an out-of-control savage capitalist feeding frenzy taking place in New York, D.C., and London at this time. Wrote that in October of 2015. Back in 2000, he voted for the complete deregulation of derivatives. Back when Brooks Bourne was fighting the Clintons and Wall Street to stop pending destabilization we witnessed in 2008. I was not shocked or depressed or upset by what happened, Bernie Sanders' actions. In fact, I tried to warn people. Debbie was all in on Bernie, as I'm sure she was all in on fucking Barack in 2008. And Bernie broke her. Bernie broke her. That's the best way I can put it. He broke a lot of people. After that, she started to tell people to stay away. She tried to jump on the Jill Stein bandwagon for a few minutes until, I was trying to tell people that John Podesta, the manager of Hillary Clinton's campaign, was the one financing Jill Stein's audit the vote thing, but just in a couple fucking states, just in the fucking blue wall states that failed, and Donald Trump won. Debbie had gotten behind that, thinking that at least somebody is auditing these votes, and of course they only audited the votes where in the counties where Donald Trump won, not the ones where they generated thousands and thousands of ghost votes in the counties where Hillary Clinton had won. So she became disillusioned, to say the least. And she started to campaign to get people to stop buying into the two-party system, the savior is going to be elected mentality, like she had been engaged in for so long. During the primaries, starting in February of 2016, being very hopeful, but she had seen, as many of us had and many of us were reporting, worrying signs that certain primaries were going to be stolen in various ways. She was as adamant about exposing that, and in real time as it was happening, as she was supportive of Bernie Sanders. And she was like a pit bull going after and exposing, and then doing interviews and talking to people in real time as this was happening. What got her was when she came to the realization that Bernie Sanders knew this was going to happen the whole time, never did anything about it, never questioned any of the obvious rigging that took place, and really turned his back on his supporters, because that's what he was going to do to start with. That's really what he was going to do to start with. Some of us knew that. Unfortunately, Debbie did not. This is for someone who feels as passionately as she does. And listen, her work, Bev Harris, who's that other guy, that fucking him. I did a bunch of work on election rigging way back when. And during the 2016 primaries, Debbie was front and center. She was in real time doing a bunch of fucking work, exposing different ways and different tricks and different methods from different states and different attorneys general. Her work was second to none. And she got a lot of interviews from that, and she got a lot of followers on YouTube for that, back in those days when they wouldn't fucking kick you off the platform for exposing stuff like that. Of course, now they do. So she was diligent, she was motivated, she was passionate. And this is, I think, part of what ended up being what ended up taking her life, was that she was extreme in both directions. According to family members, again, I don't know. I do know from watching, from seeing her videos, from seeing the thumbnails of her videos, there was a degradation, whatever it was. There was a dissent after the election, after nothing was done after she realized how she had been, and many other people have been used by Bernie Sanders, by the Democrats. It was difficult for her, to say the least. She started getting into other things, like what I call the American Gladio campaign, and that cynicism clouded her vision, I believe. And so there were some points of discussion where I disagreed strongly with some of the rhetoric that she was producing. She ends up going away for a while. She had disabled or set to private many of her videos. She just kind of dropped off the radar. Did not know she was helping to run this thing called Unite for Truth under a different name, Rose, which I believe is her middle name. None of these that I could find, I've gone through a bunch of them, but I didn't see. This is from the January 7th, 2022 VAERS data, but that's the most recent. Most of these are from December and earlier 2021. Don't know what she's been doing really since then. But she didn't completely walk away. One of the things that I thought, when I heard that she had passed, was that, she was doing great work back when there was, a Bernie Sanders to believe in. And she was fighting for election integrity. But since then, and her message that you can't fucking trust these people, any of these people on the left or the fucking right, is absolutely spot on. And she learned that lesson later in life, like many of us do, the hard way. However, her work in talking about things like the Las Vegas shooting, I didn't have a whole lot of care for. And then when she just disappeared and erased everything, all of that information, or at least set it to private, all of that good information about what had happened during the 2016 Democratic primary, that was a disappointment, to say the least. However, looking back now and having more knowledge from her family and people talking about post what happened last Friday, I guess I can understand why she felt she needed to just get a clean slate from it rather than continue. It is a dark path. It is a dark path. It's much better if you can just believe COVID-19 and the Great Reset are just coincidences. Believe that fucking skyscrapers can collapse due to fucking office fires. Believe that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Believe that the mRNA vaccines, faux vaxes, were designed to fucking work in the first place. If you can believe these things, that Bernie Sanders and the Democratic Party are out there looking out for your best interest, it's much easier to live a happy, successful, middle-class life. She chose not to. She also chose not to take advantage of her popularity and transition like people who interviewed her, like, what is happening? Like, I don't know what's going on. My computer is fucked. Like fucking Jimmy Dore. She also chose not to use that popularity and that relative fame to transition into the pseudo mainstream like Jimmy Dore did. Cash in, make money. So again, that also goes to her credit. She was authentic, if nothing else. So she did continue to do some work up until about December of 2021. To Julie's credit, Julie at Book of Hours Julie Miss Ruley, she's the one who brought this to my attention last night. I had no idea. Thank you very much, Julie. I let Aunt BB know, and Aunt BB is very sad and upset. Aunt BB had a kind of falling out, with some choices that Debbie made towards the end, but obviously Barbara respected her work when it came to exposing what was going on in the primaries in the Democratic Party in 2016. People think, because that's all they have real access to, people think that this past election was the first time that shenanigans took place. Well, I'm here to tell you, if you can find early work of Debbie Lusignan, otherwise known as the Sane Progressive, that will expand your fucking information pool, might actually help you to understand what happened this time around. As Julie posts here in this Twitter feed, on this Twitter post, for those interested, there'll be a live stream of Debbie, the Sane Progressive's funeral, Friday. Aunt BB also posts a link to it here. So there's going to be a funeral, there's going to be a service, a celebration of life for Debbie Lusignan, otherwise known as the Sane Progressive. She was indeed somebody of, oh no. Yeah, there it is again. There it is. What? My computer's shutting down. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what this is. Can I get off it? Is it locked up? No. So I'm going to get out as quickly as I can. Is that going to go away? No, good. Attention must be paid. And though at times I had disagreed with choices that she had made, I give her the respect that she deserves. The older we get, the more this happens. David Ray Griffin recently passed away, which was tragic. He's a theologian and a writer and a researcher into what actually happened on September 11th, 2001. He had written several books, all of which are worth reading. None were done for the fucking money. I see fucking, what's his face? Dr. Robert Mueller, or whatever his fucking name is. Now he's got a Sky Horse publishing book. I guarantee it's probably, I think all of these things are written by fucking the same ghostwriter. They just have slapped different fucking people's names on them. They might even be copy and pasting from each other. I don't know. I can tell you this. If we had 10 more Debbies in this movement of ours, we'd be much better off. If we had 11 more, we'd win. She had a passion. She had a burning desire. She was fucking formidable when she spoke. There's very good reason that Debbie Lusignan, the Sane Progressive, had the following that she did. because she was genuine. She was authentic. And unfortunately, when you couple that with what she was struggling with her entire life, or her entire adult life, according again to her family members, then that can be a very toxic combination. Because truth ain't easy. It comes at a price. And some people just aren't willing to fucking pay it. Others are. That's why she can't be let to go to her grave like a dog. Attention must be paid by all of us. Rest in peace, Debbie.